As I start walking up, my phone dies. I remember 224. The phone dies right in front of the entrance. I can't get in touch with none of y'all.
Oh, man.
No.
Like, I'm done. I'm going to look like the only flake. So I'm like, all right, I got to get somewhere where there's internet and a phone.
Wow.
Go to the pizza shop. There's no way I'm putting a credit card down. There's no way I'm putting a credit card down to use no internet at a janky pizza shop.
Right.
So I said, let me see if I can find somebody who for $5 will just let me borrow their phone for 1 minute.
That's for real.
I was like, let me see what I could do. Nobody bit. The cab drivers, nobody bit. I just need it for 1 minute. I got $5. I start walking back and I see some heads. I'm like, all right, let me see if I could just step to the heads and say, yo, I need this solid. I see their heads. I'm like, yo, fellas, can I ask y'all for a favor? And dude was like, yo, don't I know you? And I was like, yeah, you're such and such. And I was like, yeah. And then it's J. Rue the Damager.
Oh,
Wow.
shit.
That's crazy.
It's J. Rue the Damager. I'm like, yo, first off, I don't even want to get into how awesome and monumentally fresh you are.
Right.
Right now, I need a phone. And this is how I got here. Opened up the studio. They were just about to leave. They go back to their studio, set me up. I got in touch with y'all, and here we are.
That's what it is.
Wow.
Because of J. Rue the Damager.
Thank
That's
you,
crazy.
J. Rue.
Man,
Shout out
thank
to
you,
J.
J.
Rue.
Shout out to J. Rue Gangstar Foundation. Rest in
Okay,
peace, Guru.
okay.
Love
Right.
you.
Yeah,
Bless you.
we were just talking about that.
Yeah.
This is the 3rd anniversary today.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a crazy story.
I'm glad I can enjoy that with you guys.
That's that type of shit, man.
Yeah.
That's
hip hop.
That's that good karma that he put out. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yo, because for real, like, if you would have asked me, I'm like, nah, nigga, I don't know you. Like, you know, like, that's just New York.
Well,
you know what I
it's just
mean?
New York.
It's
And
New
you-
York.
That's just how it is.
You know you look stressed out, so you look crazy, like sweating, like,
But they look
can I
like,
use your
what?
phone?
But that's the thing. Even my approach was gonna be as cool and calm as my approach would be. It's still weird. It's like,
Yeah,
word,
right.
so you on my phone?
Right.
Word. To what? To
Word.
make some, yeah.
Make some call, some random call. Okay.
Too random. So, but yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Man.
This is cool. I didn't want to seem like a freak.
Riggs Morales.
It's
Come
all
on, y'all.
good.
Let's give it up for him, man. We gotta-
Cut it out. Cut it out. Cut it out. Cut it out.
Legendary. Wow. Where do we start?
I mean,
I think it just started as soon
Yeah.
as the
Okay.
story came in. Man.
Right?
Yeah. Yo, you've been in the game for a long ass time, over
Yes, sir.
15 years.
Yeah, man.
How did you even get your foot in the door?
It was I was fortunate enough to be taken under the wing by this legendary music journalist, very avant-garde, Bones Malone. And
Bones.
Oh, okay.
Shout out to Bones. Yeah.
yeah, Bones Malone. You know, he saw potential in some of the stuff that I was doing writing-wise. At the time, I was embracing spoken word, and he took me under the wing for about a year or so. And it's just like the beauty and the mentorship thing that I had going on with him was like he taught me the ropes without teaching me the ropes.
Right.
It's just like put me in a set of circumstances where I could soak it all in, and then when the time was right, he pointed me in the right direction. He didn't necessarily hold hands or nothing like that, and it started there, and then from there it's just like I took advantage of the opportunity that I was given as an intern. And it was at the Source magazine,
Dope.
which Source Bones had a great relationship with, and from there I always knew I wanted an A&R, always from the jump. I read an article on Puff, and Puff was just like, when I read what Puff did for a living, I was like, okay. I didn't want the shake, the lifestyle.
Right.
I just
He
knew
didn't
he
want
was
the
getting
shiny
paid.
suits.
Yeah, I just knew he was getting paid to find new talent. It's like, all right, cool. And at the time, I had already had a penchant for listening to album cuts and saying, man, this record's dope. Ends up being a single. So I'm like, all right, cool. As an intern, you already just like, what do I need to do? Make yourself valuable to
Right.
folks. And they gave me a refrigerator box filled with tapes. And my job was to go through all of those and funnel the good ones and just throw away the whack ones. I was so hungry, man, that it was like, I think I went through the whole box in like 3-4 days.
Oh, wow.
Keep in mind a refrigerator box and a cassette. It's
Yeah.
like, it's
Yeah.
like a box that a full-size refrigerator came in?
yes, exactly.
That's crazy.
Filled with tape. So it's like,
That's crazy.
Now, where
Source was getting
are
some
you from
missions,
originally?
Yeah.
here in New York,
You-
Washington Heights.
From Washington Heights.
Uptown.
Okay. Were you always musically inclined? Was your family in the music, or?
I heard it a lot, just like anybody else in the house. I was fortunate enough to have different types of music. Like me and my brother always were into the hip hop. My sister was into rock. My mom was into a lot of the old Spanish joints.
Nice.
Musically, it was just the background all the time.
So moving forward from doing the internship, where did you go from there?
I worked my way up. I worked for free for about 11 to 12 months.
Nice.
And when the opportunity, I was still in high school at the time. So it was like, it was difficult. I had to do high school, try to get a gig, and take advantage of the end of the internship. And it took a while, but it was worth it. It wasn't even like a when is this going to happen thing. It's just you're into the flow of it.
Right.
To the point where it's not even an internship anymore. You're just flowing. And then, from there I spent maybe five and a half wonderful years at that place. I worked my way up. I started as an intern, worked my way up as assistant, editorial assistant, staff writer, associate editor, and just, it was wonderful because it was a great time for hip hop, and to be able to just document it and just like tell everybody what I think is just pretty cool. Just as a fan in general, it was the best place for a fan to express himself as a writer.
Wow.
Do you feel like at the time being a journalist was kind of your stepping stone to your ultimate goal of being an A&R?
No question about it. It was a good stepping stone. It was a stepping stone I didn't expect, but I fully embraced once the opportunity came.
Right.
I've always felt that if you're going to go after something, it's not going to happen right away. You got to go this way, then this way, then this, just to get to there. I didn't fully A&R the way I envisioned until like 7, 8, maybe not 8 years later from when I started.
Crazy.
So it's a process. So then from there, during the time, I knew in order for me to be an A&R, I had to take advantage of that unsigned hype column. I needed that. I knew that. That's going to be my portfolio.
That's what we were all checking for, though.
Yeah,
that was big.
Yeah.
That's what we were
So-
all checking for.
So who did you select for Unsigned Hype during your
In
time?
that box was David Banner.
Wow.
Him and Kamikaze.
That was,
Wow.
that was
That's
15 years
huge.
ago?
That was years ago. Yeah, it was 1996.
Wow.
96,
Even
late
more.
95. Yeah, man. So he was in there later on. I had gotten Cardinal, Last Emperor, a couple of guys that came and went via the underground. Joel Santana, and most notably Eminem. Like that was the look right there.
Right.
And that was just straight raw talent.
And did he already kind of have a team together at that point, or that was
I
completely
met two
just...
people. Just two people. It was no team. It was just, he came down here to New York for 1 second, and it's like, when you're that good, the word gets around that you're in town.
Right.
So a lot of my mutual friends who I had already put on the side, I was like, have you heard this Eminem kid? I was like, nah, let me hear it. And I heard
The
it.
rest
and-
is history.
Yeah.
So this was basically around like Lyricist Lounge days.
Right before.
Right before. That's
Literally
dope.
right before, because it was a great time for New York City hip-hop. You saw
Yeah.
it right before it popped off. And with M, you saw that he was making the rounds in the right places. And but even before that, it was just listening to the music and just saying, this kid is really good. I can't sit here and tell you that he was going to be the phenomenon that he is now.
Wow.
I'd be lying to you. But I could tell you he was one of the nicest motherfuckers I ever heard in my life.
And a lot of times that doesn't equate to, becoming a superstar like
At
he
all.
has.
At all.
I mean, the rest of those cats during that time frame that were just nice. I mean, how many of them, grew to? I mean, obviously, no one grew to what he did, but how many of them even became superstars like that?
Man, at that level, with that kind of talent, you don't expect it. First of all, he had everything going against him.
Right.
He was like he was white.
Right.
All right. He wasn't New York based. He wasn't where it was happening. He was just nice. And that going back, that led to watching him unfold was wonderful. It was one of those things like, wow, cool, And 3 years later, he ends up becoming who he became. And when the opportunity presented itself for me to move on to something different, the Shady Records thing was there. Well, rather Goliath Artist Management. By that time, I had already I was tired. I had interviewed everybody, written about everybody. I was like,
What else can I do?
Yeah, what else can I do? It's time to pursue this A&R thing. So Paul Rosenberg, his manager, who I met at the same time as M, they offered me this wonderful opportunity via the idea of Proof, rest in peace. It was Proof that was like, why don't you come and manage D12? And I was like, let me talk to Paul about that first.
Yeah.
And then Paul was like, that's a lot for you right now, but why don't you come work for the company? I was like, let's go. And at the time, he had Exhibits, Cypress Hill, and Eminem. Like, okay, those are pretty much covered. I can help there, but what can I do different from everybody else? So I started the producers division. And that's when I took on a lot of my friends. I took on the Beat Nuts, Domingo, folks like Fred Wreck, Muggs, and Alchemist, you know, early on, you know. So it was like it was fun watching that unfold. And
How did you first hear him?
Yeah.
on the tour bus as a roadie for Cypress Hill.
A roadie.
I
huh?
did an article in 1998 where I was allowed to follow Cypress Hill for 5 days on the road, and he was the dude that was like, "Hey man, I make beats in the back." He was the roadie, and he's done quite well for himself.
he
man,
has.
you know. So I started the producer division, and that I had to learn the business. Making that transition, it looks cool from the outside, but once you get in there, it's a whole other system.
Right.
You know, so being a journalist helped me do my job, but the fundamentals and the business of it, I had to learn that fast.
Right.
So when I get there, I looked at Shady Records, at least most people looked at it as a reason to just, it's a vanity label. Back in the days, that's what they call it, where you just give the biggest artist you want to keep him happy.
Yeah.
You provide him a label, he can do whatever he wants. And wanted to put out D12, you know, understandably,
Right.
and then Obi Trice. I'm like, wow, I guess it's only Detroit stuff.
Right.
And I was fortunate enough to be friends with this producer who'd been like rolling around. He used to work with the Track Masters and just like, you know, never really got his due credit, but he had a great ear. It was Sha Money XL, you know.
Wow.
So Sha used to come by. We used to, you know, toke it up, and he would play the 50 stuff. Coincidentally, 50's attorney and my attorney, or Sha's attorney, were the same attorney. He plays me the music, and I was like, and I'll be honest with you, when I heard it was 50, I was like, cool, because the first 50 I wasn't a big fan of. It sounded just too familiar. It sounded like too many things that were already hot at the time. And, you know, in a really unfortunate way, him getting shot put him in a whole different place, you know, in terms of perspective and even the way he delivers.
Right.
So I was skeptic in listening to the music. And when I heard it, man, it was just like, okay, cool. This is
rock
this
with
is
it.
cra- this is crazy.
That's crazy.
So-
Yeah, you really were a part of history in that time. In that time frame, it's crazy.
Like, he wasn't even signed yet. So
Yeah.
while that's taking place, you're trying to convince M, you know, we should sign this. At the time, 50 was being blocked by his adversaries at every
Everybody.
label. Everybody.
Everybody.
Wow.
He
The
was
only-
talking
yeah.
shit about everybody.
The only
pretty much.
people that his adversaries didn't have any influence in was Shady Records. We played in our own sandbox. I'm sorry, in Aftermath, like just our camp in general.
Right.
Dre, M, like Snoop, like that whole. We didn't really play with anybody else, like so we wouldn't get caught up in politics.
Right.
So like he'd be perfect for us. So it was difficult to get M to listen to it. Lord knows, you know, even Paul had brought it up, like, yeah, you need to listen to this. But he was too devoted to 8 Mile. And when M focuses on something, it's straight focus. And when he did the 8 Mile movie, he was like, I don't want to. He was in battle rap mode,
Right.
which Benzino ended up, you know, that ended up being like. We'll get into
He
that
was
in
the
a
target.
second.
Yeah.
He caught him at the worst time. Man. Caught him at the worst time.
He was super hungry then.
So I had to be a bit creative with the way M hears it, and I was good friends with his head of security, who always drives him around and said, "Listen, if you can, play this around M.
Wow.
Here's like 10 mixtapes for you. Here you go, but play this around M." And he played it, and 3 days later, Fifth was in California, signing
Wow.
off, you know, with the Aftermath deal,
That's dope.
That's an amazing story.
and that's where that goes. Better than the J. Rue one.
Yeah.
50-50.
I mean,
No,
there's
no.
history there. We haven't seen the history from this yet.
But
Good point, good point.
it's fantastic because you're talking about different ways of getting to an artist and getting to a producer, different your own conventional ways, like giving it to the driver. I mean, like you still hustling,
And
even being
this is
the
someone who
A&R
works
and-
on their
yeah,
team.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It's
it's
still,
crazy.
you still
You
had
have
to
to
be
and
go
you're
going
still
around.
and you're still
You
going
have to.
under like he'll you know.
I've had to do this like throughout my entire career. It's like I have this philosophy. Other producers listen to the show, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's all
producer
producers.
show.
I got a bit of piece of advice for you producers, man. So if you can't get to the artist, don't stress the artist. Everybody's coming to the artist. Go after his man, the weed carrier, the one within the camp that's trying to get up and show and prove that he could bring something to the table. Whether he holds his jewels or gets his potato chips at the store, that's who you want to give the beats to.
Word.
Don't
That's
worry
great
about the
advice.
artist.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you know,
That shit in.
that shit in right there. My point of sharing that with you is one way or another, go about it creatively. It's right in front of you. You know, the pieces, you know, the prize is right there, but how are you going to get there? It's not going to go straight away.
And it's funny you talk about your internships, and we had a couple of shows a while back where we talked about internships, and you know the fellas were talking about, yo, I did an internship, I wasted my time.
Wow.
And you know, can you tell the producers how important it is for an internship even now?
Let me tell you, whether it's an official internship or an unofficial internship, is very valuable. And you could call it an internship, but any opportunity where you're around while it's happening is a great opportunity. So, you know, internship more than anything just means opportunity. So it's like if you're a producer and you can get your way into interning at a studio, do it. You're not going to get paid right away. I didn't get paid for 11 months. So I don't want to hear that shit.
Right.
All right.
You know, so it's like it's possible.
Yeah, if you're one of those people who just comes in and starts complaining right off the bat, this is the wrong.
Well, not
business
even that.
for
How
you.
about not even complaining? It's just not taking advantage of it, which is a
Right.
bigger sin.
Right.
You're in there, and you're just like enamored with what's going on, but you're not making yourself valuable. You got to make yourself valuable to whoever's there.
Now, what are some of the steps that you would give a producer? Because we talk about being in an internship and being valuable, but still not being in the way where people are like, okay, look, you're overstepping, or you're speaking too much here, you're not speaking enough here. What are some of the things you can give the producer that is in that situation that wants to say something, really can't say anything, but needs to take advantage of that situation?
Well, you got to know your environment, know who you're working with. You might be working with a hardcore prick who just wants to do nothing but torture you, but he's probably good. You need that. You need that kind of hardship. You need to go through the trial and error in order for you to learn what works best for you, especially within that system. So if you're at a studio and you wanna advance, you got to know that whole lay of the land, who to get in cool with, who not to piss off, you know. So, and you're gonna go through trial and error and learn that's gonna be your process moving forward. So, it's various ways. Just take full advantage of the opportunity, you know, when it's presented to you. Whether it's working with the local rapper, working with the cousin of a big rapper. There are more producers now than anything ever.
Man.
Production became so easy where you could make a bang on your computer.
What do you think of that from an A&R's perspective?
It's a bit overwhelming, but I will say that the exceptional stuff stands out. Where it gets a little tricky is that it gets so simple and things have been so dumbed down that there's no innovativeness in production. Nobody's trying anything different. And right now is a great time to try something different. We're in a place where folks are singing and rapping on the same record. It's just like, it's a wonderful time. And whenever you just press a button and go with a groove, there's no soul in that. The one thing I will say that the electronic component of it, now they've changed, but I had an issue with the fact that it removed the soul from the beat. So, and I love beats. But especially now, since I just made the recent transition to a much bigger label, a much more broader major,
Right.
you know, it's beyond the beat now. It's
the
about
overall product. It's a song.
It's a song, production. Like, there's a difference. If you have a beat, right, and it's just like you got, you know, a beat, and you submit it, that's what you're submitting. You're submitting a beat. If you submit a beat with some kind of chorus on it, now it's a song. Because you're basically providing, you know, the idea now for the song.